"Wait right here, Mom," Camden said, handing me a crumpled $5 bill. "Just grab me one of those energy drinks. Yeah, I'm wiped." I didn't think twice. The sun was blistering over the empty highway, and the gas station was barely more than a shack with a pump. I tucked the bill into my palm, adjusted my sunglasses, and jogged toward the door. The bottle was warm in my hand by the time I stepped back outside, but the truck was gone. I blinked, looked left, right. Nothing but heat waves and gravel. For a moment, I actually laughed, a short, breathless laugh, like I'd missed the punchline. Maybe he'd turned around the back. Maybe he needed to move the truck for another car. Maybe. I waited. First 5 minutes, then 10. The bottle's condensation ran down my fingers. I shifted from foot to foot, walked to the edge of the lot. Still nothing. My heart began to thump. Not hard, not fast, but heavy, like it knew something before I could accept it. I looked down at the drink in my hand, then up at the empty road. No phone, no purse. I'd left everything on the passenger seat. Just a quick errand, right? I sat down on the concrete curb. The heat from it seeped through my jeans. Sweat trickled down my back. Cars passed now and then, none of them his. The bottle slipped from my grip and rolled toward the pump. I wanted to scream, or cry, or believe it was still a joke. But something deeper settled in. This wasn't just a prank. This was a message. I wasn't needed, or worse, I wasn't seen. And somehow, sitting there in the dirt, it hurt less than it should have, because part of me had been bracing for this for years. I stood up, brushed the dust from my hands, and looked out over the road ahead. Anywhere was better than where I'd been left. When a woman in a minivan slowed at the pump, I walked toward her. The woman driving the minivan had kind eyes, but wary ones too. I didn't blame her. Who wouldn't be cautious picking up a middle-aged woman, alone and sweating, at a gas station in the middle of nowhere? "I just need to borrow your phone," I said quietly, both hands visible, not wanting to scare her. "I'll be quick. I need to call my aunt." She hesitated, then handed it over. I dialed a number I hadn't called in years, the only one I could remember by heart. It rang once, twice, I nearly hung up. Then, "Hello? Aunt Di, it's Manuela." Silence, then a gasp. "Oh, baby, where are you?" "Somewhere off I-7, maybe. I don't even know. He left me. Camden left me at a gas station." I didn't cry. I just said it like it was weather. Hot, dry, dangerous. "I don't have a wallet or phone, nothing." The woman in the minivan watched me carefully, her own child babbling in the back seat. "I'm transferring you some cash right now," Dottie said without another word. "Ask her if she's got Venmo or Zelle or something. I'll send it directly." The woman nodded when I asked. A few taps, a quiet buzz, and a moment later, she was handing me 2 folded 20s and a 10. "You should be able to get a ticket with that," she said. "They still take cash at small bus stations." I stared at the money like it was gold. "Thank you," I whispered. "No need," she said. "Just don't go back to whoever left you here." I nodded. She dropped me at a small, dusty station 20 miles north. I bought a one-way ticket to the only place that had ever felt safe, Aunt Dottie's coastal town. As the bus pulled away, I pressed my forehead to the window, watching the desert dissolve behind me. I wasn't running anymore. I was leaving, because no one had come to take me back. And that meant, for the first time in years, I was the one choosing where I'd go. It was close to dawn when the bus hissed to a stop at the edge of the little coastal town. The air smelled damp and salty, so different from the dry highway I had left behind. When I stepped down with my small paper bag of nothing, there she was, Aunt Di, leaning against her old pickup with her arms folded, the porch light from her house faintly glowing up the hill. She didn't rush toward me or demand an explanation. She simply opened her arms. I walked into them and let her hold me for a heartbeat longer than I expected. "Let's get you inside," she said softly. No questions, no raised eyebrows, no lecture about Camden. Her house looked smaller than I remembered, but warmer, like time had wrapped it in its own quilt. She showed me to the guest room, left a clean towel on the chair, and closed the door behind her without a sound. I didn't even bother to undress. I sank onto the bed and fell into a sleep so heavy it felt like sinking under water. When I woke up again, it was 2 days later. My body had needed the rest more than I'd realized. Aunt Di was at the kitchen table knitting, as if nothing had changed since I was a girl. She slid a plate of toast and jam toward me without looking up. "Eat," she murmured. I ate slowly, tasting every bite. For the first time in years, no one asked me to smile, to justify why I was tired, to explain what had happened. I could just sit there, barefoot, hair tangled, and exist. Somewhere between the second slice of toast and the lukewarm coffee, a small thought began to take root. I could stay, quietly, start over, without anyone knowing my name, without anyone expecting me to perform. I looked out the kitchen window at the street beyond, the morning light catching on a row of unremarkable storefronts, and saw the faded sign of a little flower shop by the corner. The woman in the mirror didn't look new, but she didn't look broken anymore either. When the shop owner asked for my name to put on the schedule, I hesitated only a second. Manuela Croft, I said. Croft had been my mother's maiden name. She used to write it carefully at the bottom of recipe cards and inside the covers of library books. Camden had never known her, never cared to. Using her name now felt like a quiet kind of tribute, a tether to someone who had loved me without conditions. The flower shop sat just off the marina, where sailboats bobbed gently in the water and tourists wandered in for seashell keychains and postcards. It smelled like eucalyptus and potting soil. And every morning, I opened the door before sunrise, swept the front step, and started the coffee machine. Mrs. Kingsley, the owner, liked things tidy. I liked that about her. She showed me how to prep roses without bruising the petals, how to bundle bouquets with just enough ribbon, how to stand up for the fragile things. She didn't ask me where I came from, or why my hands sometimes trembled when the front door chimed too loud. I didn't tell anyone about Camden, not his name, not what he did. He didn't belong here, not in the cool morning light filtering through the shop windows, not in the careful rhythm of stems and water buckets and soft music humming from the back room. Each day had a shape to it. Mornings were deliveries, afternoons were walk-ins, evenings meant scrubbing buckets and trimming stems for tomorrow. I wore simple clothes, tied my hair back, let the routine soften my thoughts like warm water on stiff roots. People came in and called me Manuela, and I didn't flinch. I wasn't hiding. I was beginning. One afternoon, as I was fixing a display of wildflowers near the front window, the bell rang, and a boy about 20, shirt stained with something red, stumbled in. The bell above the door rattled hard, not like a normal customer's entrance. I turned from the window display to see a boy no more than 20 staggering inside. His t-shirt was torn, stained dark on one side, his hands clutching at his ribs. For a split second, I froze, the shears still in my fingers, but then instinct took over. "Sit down," I said, already grabbing the clean rags we used to dry buckets. He slumped against the counter, breath coming in short, sharp bursts. I pressed the cloth to his side, feeling the warmth of blood seep through. "Hold this," I guided his hand, then reached for the shop phone with my other. My voice stayed steady as I gave the dispatcher our address, explained there was a young man bleeding, possibly stabbed. He looked up at me, eyes glassy but still searching. "Don't leave," he whispered. "I'm not going anywhere," I said. He tried to smile, but it came out like a wheeze. "You remind me of my mom," he said hoarsely. I didn't flinch. I just held his hand tighter and kept pressure on the wound. Outside, I could hear the faint wail of sirens growing closer. The shop smelled of damp earth and cut stems, an odd, almost gentle backdrop to his pain. "Stay with me," I murmured, as the sirens stopped and heavy boots approached the door. Paramedics came in, their questions quick, their movements practiced. I helped them lift him onto the stretcher, still keeping my eyes on his face until they wheeled him out. When the door swung shut behind them, I was left standing in a puddle of diluted blood and water, the rag limp in my hand. My heart was pounding, but there was no panic, only a strange, steady resolve. The next morning, just as I was unlocking the shop, the bell rang again. This time he wasn't bleeding, but he was there. Ellis started showing up every few days after that. At first, I thought it was just to say thank you, but then I'd find him sweeping the walkway before I opened, or tinkering with the broken latch on the back gate, like it had always been his job. He never said much, which I appreciated. There was a quiet understanding between us. I didn't ask where he lived or why he had shown up bleeding that day. He didn't ask who I was before Manuela Croft. One Saturday, I came out back to find him repainting the old fence, sunburned shoulders, paint-stained jeans, humming to himself like he belonged there. When I asked why, he just shrugged, figured it was time you had something that looked new. The neighborhood started noticing. Customers smiled differently when they came in, called me the flower lady, asked about the boy who helped with deliveries. "Is that your son?" one older woman asked gently, nodding toward Ellis as he arranged a vase of irises near the window. I didn't answer right away, just tucked a strand of hair behind my ear and turned back to the roses I was trimming. But inside I felt something shift, like my heart had quietly nodded. Yes. That afternoon, Ellis brought in an old tin can with a single daisy he'd found on the roadside. "Not for sale," he said, placing it on the corner of my workbench. Just something to fill the empty space. I didn't realize until then how much I'd been holding my breath. Living quietly isn't the same as living fully. Something about his presence made the quiet feel like home, not just hiding. When I closed up that evening, the daisy was still there, catching the last of the golden light. I turned off the lights one by one, leaving only the porch bulb glowing in the front window. And just like that, it didn't feel like I was starting over anymore. It felt like I was becoming someone new, someone whole. The door wasn't locked when I got home. At first, I told myself I must have forgotten. In the rush of the morning, Ellis had stopped by early with breakfast tacos, and we'd been laughing about a customer who insisted on roses without thorns. But the moment I stepped inside, I felt it. Still air. A heaviness that didn't belong. Nothing looked disturbed, not at first. The couch was still as I left it. The mail stacked on the entry table, my tea mug drying on the rack. But when I stepped into the bedroom, I saw it. The bottom drawer of my dresser was open, just slightly, like a mouth not sure whether to speak. I hadn't opened that drawer in weeks. Inside were old things, photos I hadn't looked at, a faded scarf that once belonged to my mother, a bus ticket stub I'd never thrown away. Nothing was missing, but the drawer wasn't how I left it. Someone had been here. I locked up and sat on the couch, clutching my bag like it could hold answers. My hands were trembling before I even reached for the phone. Ellis came within 20 minutes. He didn't knock, just walked in with careful steps, eyes scanning the room. After I showed him the drawer, he didn't ask questions, didn't make me repeat myself. He simply nodded and got to work. He replaced the front lock with one that needed a code, installed a porch camera he ordered from his phone without even asking me. Then he sat at the kitchen table, sipping water, arms crossed, just staying. "Don't you have somewhere to be?" I asked quietly. He looked at me like I'd asked something ridiculous. "I'm right where I should be." That night, he slept on the old couch with a blanket Aunt Di had crocheted. I listened to the soft hum of the porch camera cycling in the background. The fear in my chest hadn't gone away, but it had company now, a kind that stood watch in the dark without needing to be asked. The morning sun was soft on my face as I arranged mason jars of peonies on the folding table. The market was in full swing, children chasing each other between booths, the air thick with the smell of kettle corn and warm bread. Ellis was beside me, tying little chalkboard signs onto bundles of lavender. He liked helping at the stand, said it made him feel useful. I liked him there because it made the space feel safe. I handed a woman her change when I heard it. "Mom!" One word. It cracked to the air like a bone snapping under weight. I turned before I could stop myself. And there he was. Camden. His hair was longer, his face thinner, but I'd know that voice anywhere. He wasn't smiling. He looked like he'd seen a ghost. His eyes flicked from me to Ellis, then back again. Ellis stood taller at my side, quiet, unreadable. He didn't say anything, didn't move, just watched. Camden took a hesitant step forward. "Is it really you?" I didn't answer, not with words. I wrapped the twine around a bouquet with a steady hand, picked up the next bunch of stems, moved like I hadn't heard him at all. Because in a way, I hadn't. That name, Mom, didn't belong to him anymore. I could feel his eyes begging for something. Recognition, maybe regret. But I had spent 2 years becoming someone else. Someone whole, someone safe. When Ellis didn't break his gaze, and I didn't break my silence. Finally, I turned, not toward Camden, but away. "Ready to pack up?" I asked Ellis. "Yeah," he said softly, as if nothing had happened. And that's when I knew. I wasn't shaken. I wasn't scared. I wasn't even angry. I was done. We folded the table, loaded the crates into the back of the van. I never looked back, but I could still feel his eyes on my shoulders as we drove away, like the past watching me choose something better. He came to the shop just before closing. The bell above the door jingled, and I looked up from the register expecting one of the regulars. Instead, it was Camden. He looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically, but like something inside him had been carved out and never replaced. He stood just past the threshold, clutching the edge of the doorframe like it might close on him. 5 minutes, he said. "Please, just 5 minutes." I didn't speak. I wiped my hands on a towel and turned off the water in the back sink. The air between us held years of silence. "I was awful," he said, his voice cracking. "That day, leaving you, it was the worst mistake of my life. I thought it was just a joke. I didn't think you'd actually leave." "I didn't leave," I said softly, meeting his eyes. "I was left." He looked down. "I didn't realize until it was too late. When I came back and you were gone, I waited weeks. I thought maybe you'd cool off, come back angry. You never did." I leaned on the counter. "Why are you here now?" He hesitated. "I saw the shop. I saw him. he added, meaning Ellis. I guess I needed to know if you were okay. I nodded. I am. Camden swallowed hard. I don't know who he is to you, but he's someone who never left me waiting, I said. That's who he is. His face twisted. Pain, maybe? Regret? I couldn't tell. I didn't disappear, Camden, I continued. I bloomed where you left me. He nodded slowly, tears shining in his eyes. I deserve that. You deserve the weight of what you did, I said, but not the right to rewrite it. For a moment, we just stood there. Two people with nothing left to give each other but the truth. Then I turned the sign on the door to closed. He stepped back without protest. Ellis arrived a minute later, holding 2 coffees. Everything okay? I smiled faintly. It is now. The second flower shop opened quietly, just like the first one had. No grand sign, no ribbon cutting, just the smell of fresh lilies drifting into the street and a chalkboard out front that said, Open. Ellis handled the marina shop now, steady as ever. He'd grown into his space like he'd always belonged there. Sometimes people still whispered when they saw us together. Is that her son? They'd murmur over bouquets of peonies or fiddle with the sleeves of their cardigans, waiting for some kind of explanation. I never gave one. I just smiled. What could I say? That he wasn't born of me, but he'd become my reason to get up in the morning? That he'd repaired more than just the shop's fence? That he'd mended things I didn't even know were broken? The truth was, I didn't owe them anything. Ellis called me Mom now, sometimes out loud, sometimes in the way he'd ask if I'd eaten lunch, or leave a mug of coffee on my desk just the way I liked it. He didn't say it for show, he said it because it was real, and I answered to it. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. Camden hadn't come back. I hadn't expected him to. Whatever he was searching for, it wasn't here. Not anymore. I wished him healing from afar. I sat outside the new shop on the first chilly evening of fall, wrapping my sweater tighter and watching leaves skitter down the sidewalk. Inside, a girl was buying sunflowers for her grandmother. I could hear Ellis laughing as he rang up the sale. This life wasn't the one I'd been given. It was the one I chose. And in that quiet moment, surrounded by flowers, laughter, and the soft hum of belonging, I realized I didn't need to look back anymore.